Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the virtual hearing of Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development. In attendance today for the members of the committee, I'm Council Member and Chair of the committee, Sharon Green Middleton, representing the 6th District and also serve as Vice President of the Council. Do we have Vice Chairman, Councilwoman Danielle McCray?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Ed Reisinger of the 10th District and member of the committee?
Here.
Thank you. And Eric Costello, representing the 11th District and member of the committee? Councilman Eric Costello, are you here? I see your name. We'll skip over, and we have Councilman Robert Stokes of the 12th District and member of the committee.
I'm here.
Thank you, Councilman. And checking to see if there's any other council members on, and no, there is not. And representative from the Office of the President. I see Dominique McGalley. Are you here?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning. And representing the Mayor's Office, I see Matt Stedman.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Eric Costello, my apologies, I'm present.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Okay, this morning, we have 3 bills that we are going to hear that basically are in reference to the Perkins Somerset Oldtown development. And what we're going to do is I'm going to name those 3 bills. We're going to get comments from if the president comes in or not, but we're definitely going to have comments from Councilman Robert Stokes. The 3 bills are Bill number 20-0587, Perkins Somerset Oldtown Development District. And then there's the bill number 20-0588, Perkins Somerset Oldtown Bond Issuance. And the third bill is bill number 20-0589, Perkins Somerset Oldtown Special Taxing District. This bill was, these bills were introduced on August 17th, 2020, sponsored by the Council President on behalf of the administration. And in this segment, I would turn it over to comments from Councilman Robert Stokes that represents this district. Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few remarks about my support for Perkins Somerset Oldtown redevelopment project. Over several decades, Perkins homes and Somerset extension were marked by neglect, blight that accompanies communities where poverty is concentrated. At a time where decent and affordable housing is desperately needed, this project will deliver new and improved housing to the residents of Perkins and Somerset with 1-for-1 replacement units. Housing will be expanded to accommodate market rate as well as low and moderate income units in order to create a mixed income neighborhood. This will be a place where those making between less than 30,000, below 30,000 will live in the same neighborhood as someone making 70,000. I've always said the building structure is fine, but that it's not enough to rebuild a community. People make the community. That's why I am encouraged to finally see a TIF being used to directly benefit a Black community that has been marginalized and deprived of opportunity for a long time. In this project, the focus is not just on development of the land. HABC realized a holistic approach was needed to help the residents rebuild their lives. They are providing life skills and mentoring to current residents through a partnership with Urban Strategies. The project puts people first to ensure families are prepared to enjoy their new surroundings, which includes a new neighborhood park, a brand new school, and a new renovated rec center. After I had Chick Webb Memorial Center designated a historic landmark, I worked with DHCD and Rec and Parks and to plan a $12 million renovation, a project that also involved intentional community outreach and engagement. The development project promised to deliver first-class housing and amenities that the residents of Perkins and Somerset deserve. From the beginning of my term on the council, I've been involved with DHCD, HABC, and most important with the residents to ensure that this project doesn't only provide housing, but increase opportunity for economic mobility. This project can be a model for people-first development using a TIF as an economic development tool it was intended to be. And I hope the committee votes in favor of this project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Stokes, for your opening remarks and comments, and definitely looking forward to how this is going to move along, especially as we have been paying very close attention to the improvement of TIFs in our city. At this point, we're going to do agency reports, and I'm going to go down the list and start with some agencies, and then we're going to get to the meat of the agencies that are really going to talk about this particular project. So I want to start with the Parking Authority. Is the Parking Authority here?
Yes. Hello. Good morning, committee members. This is Brett Thorne with the Parking Authority. We have reviewed the legislation and we do not oppose passage of the bill.
Thank you. Department of Public Works. The representative.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. This is Marcia Collins, representing Department of Public Works this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this and other bills. These companion legislation, we see it as a great opportunity to see safe and affordable housing and to reinvigorate some of the public amenities for the community. And we are in support of the passage. Thank you.
Thank you. The Board of Municipal Zoning Appeals.
Leave and ado for the BMZA. The BMZA recommends approval of these bills.
Thank you. The Baltimore Development Corporation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan Taylor with Baltimore Development Corporation. We are favorable in support of these bills.
Thank you. The Department of Planning.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair. This is Tamara Woods with the Department of Planning. And on September 10th, the Planning Commission did consider all three bills and unanimously voted approval for all bills. If you have any questions further down the line for us, we are here.
Thank you. The Department of Law.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Hillary Ruley from the Law Department. The Law Department looked at all three of these and also spoke with outside bond counsel. They're all fine. We just noticed one typo on 589. It's literally the number 1 instead of the letter I on the attached schedule. And so that's written up in our bill report on that bill. I'm sure that typo can be corrected, and assuming it is, we're all good. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, now we're going to, are there any questions at this point from the committee? Moving along, we're going to start with the Housing Authority of Baltimore City, Janet Abrams. And then after her testimony, I think we're moving to William Wells, which is probably going to, they're going to be a dialogue with Department of Finance and also Housing and Community Development, but we're going to start with Janet Abrams. Miss Janet Abrams, you're on.
Good morning, Madam Chair. We do have a presentation this morning that we will be doing. I believe the
presentation.
Is there a
okay.
And so with the presentation, Madam Chair, myself and and Alice Kennedy from DHCD will be presenting together. We are, as you know, the grant agreement is between the Housing Authority and the city, and DHCD and HABC have been working tirelessly over the last several years to get this to where it is today. So I definitely want to make sure that we both present together, and this particular presentation is, we have it in different segments. So I want to start out with Alice, if you can unmute her so she can go ahead and start with the process. They are the ones introducing the TIF to the commission today. Alice?
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with you, and we appreciate you giving us this opportunity to share with you details about the Perkins Somerset Oldtown, otherwise known as what you will hear this morning as the PSO transformation plan and the TIF legislation that is before you and the committee today.
Alice, can I interrupt 1 second? Apparently we were supposed to have Henry Raymond start. I apologize, so that he can do the TIF portion and then we would take over. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm all discombobulated today. So
that's quite okay. It's
all right. Thank you.
It's early morning.
All right, Mr. Raymond.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, Chairwoman Middleton, Vice Chairwoman McCray, honorable members of the committee. I'm Henry Raymond, Director of Finance. I have a set of 7 slides to go through that provides the overview and background of what tax increment financing is. So if we'll turn to the next slide. Yep. So tax increment financing is a funding strategy that uses increased property tax revenues from new development within a defined geographic area to fund public infrastructure. Tax increment represents the taxes collected on new assessed value of properties within a development district. The tax rate remains the same inside the development area as other city properties. And finally, property owners receive only one property tax bill unless there is a shortfall in the increment needed to pay the debt service on the TIF bonds. And we can move to the next slide. Now, slides 3 through 7 describe the flow of revenues from pre-construction to post-construction. So for slide 3, the project is initiated, the TIF boundary is defined, and the tax base is frozen, and redevelopment begins. The tax base is frozen because we have to establish the level of taxes that we were previously receiving that we'll continue to receive in the future. Slide 4. Now, in the short term, the construction is now underway, and the assessed value of properties will begin to increase, and the TIF bonds will be issued. Now, you see the bar chart. The dark blue line, the dark blue columns represent the base taxes paid to the general fund. The light blue lines represent the increased assessment from the increased values of the properties. Slide 5. Now, this is the midterm of the project. The project is now being completed. The TIF bonds are now being amortized, meaning that we're beginning to pay the debt service on the bonds. So from the bar chart, what you can see is the base taxes, the dark blue column, continue to be paid into the general fund. The light blue bar, which represents the incremental taxes generated from increased assessment, that's what's used to pay the debt service. And you start to see a little bit of the green bar. That represents excess increment that can flow to the general fund as assessed values continue to rise, generating additional real property taxes. And we can go to slide 6. And this is a better depiction of it. As you can see, the dark blue line columns, that's the base taxes going to the general fund. The light blue, you see the incremental taxes to provide debt service. And the light green, as you see, that continues to increase as the assessed values of properties are increasing. And slide 7. This is the slide that finance directors like. You'll see the dark blue columns end. That represents the point in time where the bond debt is paid off. And then you see the green lines. That's where all of the future taxes flow to the general fund after the bonds have been extinguished. And essentially, that is the funding mechanism for a TIF. The general fund continues to receive the base taxes. Incremental taxes pay for the debt service. As the project is completed, the assessed values continue to rise, generating additional real property taxes, and those taxes flow to the general fund. When the bond debt is eliminated or extinguished, meaning that the debt service has been paid off in its entirety, at that point, the green bars, all of the taxes flow to the general fund. And that will conclude my remarks regarding TIF fund strategy. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Abrams and Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Alice Kennedy will start. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Raymond. Once again, good morning, Madam Chair and Vice Chair McCray and members of the committee. I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide you with information this morning on the Perkins Somerset Oldtown transformation area, and as well as the TIF. I'd like to state that the Department of Housing and Community Development and HABC with Janet Abrams and her staff have been working hand in hand, and as she mentioned earlier, as well as tirelessly as a team to get us to where we are today. With me today at the hearing on for DHCD staff, I do have Jay Green, DHCD's Chief Operating Officer, as well as Stacy Freed, who is Special Assistant to the Chief Operating Officer, and who have been taking the lead with our staff and working with HABC on this. The One of the reasons why we are here today, and actually a large reason why we're here today, is because of the award of a HUD Choice Neighborhoods grant. $30 million was awarded in 2018 to the city and HABC. And that grant is intended to spur large-scale catalytic investment based on the redevelopment of Perkins Home, Somerset Home site, and the Oldtown Mall. It's meant to reverse ongoing concentrated poverty, utilizing mixed income housing. And the grant itself consists of 3 elements: people, neighborhoods, and housing. The Housing Authority of Baltimore City is the project lead and is the lead for the housing and people components. And then DHCD and the city are the principals for the neighborhood improvements and neighborhood component of the grant. We would not be here today in front of you without this grant from HUD and the opportunity that it has provided for us to create transformational change within our neighborhoods. It's a 6-year grant, but it is a 10-year transformation. And throughout the PowerPoint, you will see that Director Abrams and I will be presenting to you and will be sharing this presentation, as she mentioned earlier. I'd like to start, explaining the importance of the TIF legislation. The TIF you're being asked to approve is a watershed moment for the city's community development efforts, and I believe it will serve as a national best practice. The Perkins Somerset Oldtown TIF is the city's first community benefits TIF, and this is something that Councilman Stokes touched on in his remarks earlier as well, where the proceeds are being used to support public housing, schools, parks, and services. The TIF is how we generate the funds used to pay for the infrastructure that supports the replacement public housing units, new affordable housing, the school, the parks, the grocery store, as well as retail opportunities. This provides an opportunity to create jobs, and first and foremost, jobs for the residents at Perkins, as well as throughout the community. And this is one of the ways that we feel that we have the ability to start undoing and reversing decades of intentional and unintentional discrimination and disinvestment in our communities. The PSO represents a new mixed income community. This is transformational in that it closes the donut hole and reconnects the Perkins Somerset Oldtown area to thriving waterfront neighborhoods. Beyond the TIF, we are creating a neighborhood that is walkable, accessible, inclusive, and equitable. We are strengthening our current assets and starting with the community's crown jewel, which is the Chick Webb Recreation Center within the broader neighborhood, kind of beyond the TIF footprint. We recognize the importance of retail and recreation throughout the neighborhood so that residents can enjoy the being able to go to the grocery store, walk and bike to where they are, as well as having access to 2 new parks that are part of this project. We are focusing on the intersection of health, housing, and economic self-sufficiency within this project. We're building a community that puts residents first. It includes a new 21st century school. It has had broad-based community planning, receiving wide support, some of whom will be speaking later on and providing testimony. And at this time, I would like to thank Delegate McIntosh and the 46th state legislative district representatives, Senator Ferguson, Delegates Clippinger, Learman, and Lewis, for their strong support of this project and the TIF legislation. They have also provided support letters that I believe are in your files and have been distributed to the committee. We'd also like to thank Councilman Stokes, who has been a strong supporter of the project since its early days, and welcome the fact that he was able to provide a statement earlier in this hearing showing his support for the project as well, and his involvement in helping to, bring the voice of the community and be supportive and be there as well to listen to the community members and help us develop what we feel is, like I said earlier, a national best practice for this type of project. The PSO is an important break to the cycle of intergenerational poverty, and the TIF funds are for infrastructure and additional community uses, which includes the schools and parks. This slide that you're looking at right now breaks down for you the schedule of the bonds, the A bonds, B and C bonds, with the total TIF investment and where that lies around the project areas. Within Oldtown, the public infrastructure being used to create the pedestrian plaza. Sorry, I don't know if we lost the slide there for everybody. But there we go. So it's being used to create the pedestrian plaza and support public infrastructure, as well as creating jobs through hotel and retail opportunities. Over 900 full-time permanent jobs from the projects funded through the TIF, including over 100 full-time permanent jobs at the grocery store and an additional 400 retail related jobs as well. On this slide, you can also see, we have the City Springs Elementary School, which is a total investment of $50 million, of which 21 million roughly is coming from the TIF legislation to support the creation and building of that new 21st century school. It's a community priority, this school, and it's one of the deciding factors, what we heard from HUD in terms of HUD awarding the city our grant because of the inclusion of the focus on education opportunities for the residents within the community. Next slide. And at this point, I'll hand it off to my colleague, Janet from HABC, who will talk about some of the housing plans associated with the project and the TIF.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Again, I want to thank you, Madam Chair, and for giving us this opportunity today. We do have some folks on the call that I would like to recognize. Bill Wells, you mentioned him before. He is our strategist, our Senior VP of Business Strategy for the Housing Authority. We also have Allison Perkins Cohens from the school system that is also prepared to testify today. We have my team. I can't forget my team, Cynthia Newman-Lynch and Arlisa Anderson from the Development Department on. And of course, we have our developers in support on the call also. This slide represents our housing plan from the grant. As you know, we have 629 units over at Perkins. At the end of the 5 years, we will be responsible as a team to realize 1,346 units. At the end of the 10 years, which is where the plan, because this plan has two sunshine. We have the grant period, which is the 5 years, and that's the 1,346. But the plan itself is an aggressive plan that covers 244 acres. And at the end of the 10 years, we will realize 2,172 units at Perkins, Oldtown, Somerset. And next slide, please. And so we're also adding additional units to this strategy, 191. Again, these properties, they're listed in the footprint of the 244 acres, 110 South Central, the Car Barn, McKeldery, which is 620 North Caroline Street, that will be student housing. And we will end up with an additional 191 on top of the 2,172 units. And these, we have market rate and affordable, a mixture of units that will be coming online. As far as the increments, generating the increments that Director Raymond spoke about earlier, the housing component of this, you have the mixed income units at Oldtown. You have the additional units that we're adding on the Perkins footprint. And of course, the units that I mentioned on the previous slide that will be part of generating the increment for this particular project. I will turn it over to Ms. Kennedy to talk about the retail and the commercial component that will be doing that also.
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Before, as far as the housing, and we're in COVID, and there's going to be, I'm sure, a relocation process. I guess it's kind of two questions. Are some of these developments or individual housing apartments that are there now, are some of them already vacant? Will you have to change your process and how you do relocation? That's a very, as we all know, and as I know just from my Park Heights experience, it's a very personal one-on-one thing that takes some time. And are there some new changes because we're in the pandemic? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. We have 3 relocation counselors on the ground at Perkins that's working closely with the families, and they have submitted their strategies as to how they would work with the families during the pandemic. We are practicing several, of course, different strategies, wearing masks, social distancing, making sure that when we have to, if you stop by the Perkins Community Center, you will see that we have created spaces with screens for interviews with our families. So every precautions that we can think of, or working through CDC, and of course with the local health department, we're making sure that we're practicing that currently at the site. So the 3 relocation counselors plus the case management with urban strategies, we are definitely making sure that we're protecting ourselves and the residents.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee at this point before we move on to back to Alice Kennedy? No questions. It's all yours.
I mean, we're doing great. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So another key component in terms of generating increment for the TIF is the 120 key hotel, 2 parking garages that are associated with the hotel, and providing also additional parking for some of the retail, as well as there is 116,000 square feet of office retail space, including a merchandise mall similar to ones that are in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and also additional retail, an additional 41,000 square feet of office and retail, which includes the area of the car barn on Central Avenue. So between the housing and retail and commercial, there's a variety of ways that we are generating the increment for the TIF. And I will, in terms of starting with progress to date, I'll pass that back to Ms. Abraham.
Right. So as you know, we have 9 phases of housing that we're working with under the plan. And I am happy to say that we have made great progress so far relative to the financing and to construction. So Somerset 1 is currently under construction. That is the Somerset that's led by the Henson Mission team. The Somerset 2 financial closing is scheduled for fall of this year. Somerset 3, their financial closing is scheduled for winter of this year. And Somerset 4, they have submitted their tax credit application for this round. It was submitted this month. So you have 4 phases at Somerset, and 3 of those phases are their financial component is settled, and they will be going to closing. And then, of course, the 4th phase, which consists of the grocery store, is currently, their application is currently in process. Perkins 1, we have 5 phases at Perkins. Perkins 1, we are scheduled to close in the first quarter of next year. And Perkins 2, their financial application was recently submitted also in this round for the tax credit. It was submitted this month. So out of the Perkins master plan, which is the next slide that you're looking at, when you look at this particular slide, what this shows you is that we have, of course, the 5 phases, but you're also looking at the school, which is the darker blue section. This is the new school that we would be bringing back, 950 seat state-of-the-art school. Of course, Principal Raquetta is on today, and she will be getting her purple field. That's something that we promised her from day one. The darker buildings that you see here in D and I, those are the 80-20 buildings that was added for the increment to this particular plan. Next slide. So just a series of pictures that we wanted just to show the committee of all the work that the developers have been doing in making sure that we put together great renderings so that our families can see exactly what the properties will look like. This is not just a stacked picture. These are actual pictures of what these properties will look like at the end of the construction. You're currently looking at the park. You're also on the next slide, we're looking at phase 1 of Perkins, and this is what the that will be in the A, with the arrows pointing to the A portion. This is what this property will look like. Here's Perkins. Next slide, Perkins 2, phase 2. That will be at 226 Caroline Street and 1501 Claremont. Of course, this is an actual view of what this property will look like. Next slide. And of course, the Somerset master plan. We talked about Somerset having 4 phases. First phase under construction. And also they will have the benefit of a park. This is the section, the green space is where the park will be located at Somerset. And so we're really working hard to make sure that this becomes a reality for this area, as this is a significant component of the housing plan. Somerset 1, as I mentioned earlier, is under construction. I had the pleasure of touring the building earlier this week with some of the families that would like to move to this site. I am happy to say they're on schedule, and we're scheduled for opening this building the first early January of 2021. Next slide, please. Somerset 4, as I mentioned at the onset, this building will house the new grocery store. It will be located at 1231 Jefferson Street. This is, and of course, you see the variety of changes in how the buildings will look in the community. Next slide. Alice? Is this my slide or your slide? Can't remember. This is the north entrance. This is the park. Of course, it's a neighborhood slide, so I'm really conscious of the fact that the city is responsible for the neighborhood. So this is the North Central Park and you will see all the different aspect of the park and all the different features that we will be bringing to the park once it's completed. Next slide. There you go. Neighborhoods.
So one of the key things is that choice neighborhoods is not only about the housing. It's also about a comprehensive revitalization of neighborhoods and ensuring that residents have access to high quality facilities and that they also play a role in the facilities, in designing the facilities and their uses. The cornerstone within the neighborhoods, our strategies are focused around improving mobility and connectivity and a sense of place, improving access to those services, including recreation and education, and also increasing economic opportunity and improving access to those amenities. The focus areas that we have within the neighborhoods are the City Springs Elementary Middle School, public safety, our recreation and parks, as well as economic development. The cornerstone of the plan is the new City Springs Elementary and Middle School. It is K through 8, as well as has an early it will have an early childhood education program there as well. We have, like Director Abrams has said, we've been working closely with the principal and the Baltimore Curriculum Project, which operates the school, and with Baltimore City Public School System to ensure the success of this project. And the school is receiving widespread support in addition to leveraged funding outside of the funding from the TIF that will be used for the school. Next slide. In terms of outcomes for this, this is a great comeback story for the city of Baltimore and for this area, restoring Oldtown and bringing back the vibrancy of the area to create a destination within, that has both regional appeal and beyond, as well as providing an inclusive and equitable area for our residents here in Baltimore. It has a combination of historic rehab as well as new construction. It's a walkable community with significant access to many areas of the city, including the waterfront and downtown, walkable and bikeable. What's different here, is that one of the things is that, we've been moving forward with this in terms of creating healthier outcomes for our residents and having a safe neighborhood. Next slide. So the critical components and critical improvements that we've talked about, there's two main focus areas: placemaking, community and green spaces, public art, and the retail and fresh fruit, food retail and grocer. And all of this is within the HUD approved plan from the Choice Neighborhoods Grant. Next slide. In terms of one of our strategies, accessible communities, this is a rendering of Central Avenue and Caroline Street, complete streets with a pedestrian and bike-friendly corridor. Next slide. We have submitted the public safety plan to HUD in August, and we're just waiting their response and feedback. The 4 strategies within that plan are making physical environment safe, leveraging different forms of technology, really building on community engagement, and reducing crime and victimization. Next slide. This is a overview and rendering of the City Springs Elementary School, which represents a total of a $53 million investment that serves Somerset and Perkins families. On this slide, there is what we believe the early childhood education component will be located up by the tiny parking lot, which will give access to families to have younger children being able to be dropped off at the building. Next slide. And then, this gets us to Oldtown, like I said a little earlier, in terms of being able to preserve historic preservation of existing buildings, providing a 120 key hotel, mixed income buildings, the parking garages, and the retail space. When you look at this rendering, it represents a 4-phase mixed-use development. Phase 1, which is noted on the map with the number 1s and the lighter shade of tan, that is rehabbing within the 400 block and also includes an entrepreneurial incubator space, which also will serve as a resource for residents of Somerset, and they will be able to utilize that space for the incubator. And that closing is actually expected to occur within the year of 2020. Phase 2, noted on the slide, also has some site and infrastructure work, which is related with the TIF funds for the hotel, which is noted as 2A on the slide, and the parking garage, as well as the 290 mixed income residential units located within this area. Phase 3 is the merchandise mall, which, if we go back, I do want to bring that up, which supports retail and also, and then there's phase 4, which is just additional redevelopment along McElderly Street. You can go to the next slide. So for people, I'll pass this back to Ms. Abraham.
So the focal point of the entire plan are the people. One of the things that we focus on with the people strategies led by Urban Strategies, we focus on health and wellness, employment, job training, and education. The goal of the plan is to lead, the goal of the plan is to make sure our families have economic stability, reduce the stress of trauma, and ensuring that all families are stable and thriving. And I mentioned earlier that it's led by Urban Strategies, but they also have a host of partners that they're working with to make sure that we realize all the commitments that we have made to the families at Perkins. Next slide. So under the health and wellness, of course, the 8 registered nurses leveraged from Johns Hopkins, they're on site and they provide service coordination and health assessment with our families. They have taken part in making sure that we're distributing healthy foods to our families, place-based health and wellness training, targeting chronic illness diagnosis is ongoing at the property. And they have also created the Health Ambassador curriculum and training provided by the University of Maryland. One of the things that we have done with the plan, especially with the people strategies, to make sure we create baselines. And in doing so, we started out this project by making sure that we completed a very intense survey of all families that participated in the survey. And from there, we were able to set baselines. We track the performance of the baselines, and we also set matrix. So there should be positive outcomes in every single area. Under health and wellness, I just want to highlight one of the section, head of households reporting excellent health, physical health. Under the baseline, we had 79%. The performance to date, we're at 80, but the matrix ask for a 90% performance rate in this category. So we're well on target to get where we are trying to land as far as the matrix is concerned. Next slide. Under economic self-sufficiency, of course, we have on-site job placement assistance. We're affording that to the families. To date, 90% of the residents that Urban Strategies assisted in getting unemployment, 90% continues to be employed. So that is excellent retention. They have assisted 4 families to date in purchasing their own home. This is one of the relocation options that our families have. They have increased the credit scores of 21 of our residents by 50 points. They continue to provide on-site budgeting and credit management and debt service training, of course, and we continue to mitigate the loss from COVID-19 by actively enrolling in virtual training. One of the key component of this particular goal, the average annual income of workable households, our baseline was $12,219. The performance to date is $15,800. The goal is to get to $25,000. As you can see, we're well on our way in that particular area. Next slide. Education. Again, they have worked very hard with our families and also with the various educators in the area and with the City Springs School staff to make sure that we're realizing some outcomes. As far as enrollment in early learning programs, our baseline was 52%. Today, we're at 65%. Kindergarten readiness, baseline was 30, we're at 50. Screening for developmental delays, our baseline was 74. Currently, we're at 87%. Next slide. So overall, this is a great program for the city. The city we will have $1 billion in public and private investment at the end of the 10 years. This plan puts our residents first. As you can tell from the people component, we're very aggressive in assisting our families and making sure our families are first in this plan. Opportunity to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. That is the crust of what this is. We are preserving public housing. As I mentioned earlier, we're demolishing 629 units, but we're bringing back 652 public housing units. And of course, we are also increasing affordable housing within the city from all the other various programs that we have within this development. Alice?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. This is a very good presentation, very detailed. Just a quick question about transportation in the area. I know that Alice had mentioned, there's complete streets being practiced. But with the state MTA and the bus routes, that we have been told that, there's going to be changes in bus routes and so on. Are you in dialogue with the state on how you're going to devise the bus routes in that area? Excuse me.
This is a neighborhood strategy to make sure that we work with the transportation department to provide transportation for our families. I have not started the dialogue with them, but that is part of the strategy to make sure that we have a conversation around transportation in the area.
Because I do know as of today, they have a open, cutoff timeline of when to do public comment. So just a little flag that someone needs to express to them the importance of certain bus routes and so on, I guess, as you continue to move forward.
Definitely, we will follow up today. We have Jay Matthews on. I'm sure she will, her and Arlisa will take this and make sure that we solidify that piece. Thank you.
So picking up, where Janet left off with this slide, it's about reversing decades of disinvestment, removing the legacy of dense urban poverty. The TIF funds are a but-for piece of the more than $1 billion in investment that will transform the area between Oldtown Mall, former Somerset homes, and Perkins homes. Like we've said before, all the holes in the donut that have been disconnected from major revitalization efforts over the years. And the PSO and the PSO transformation plan and the TIF are a critical step to reversing the decades of intentional disinvestment and connecting residents to other areas of the city. We are particularly excited about the redevelopment of Chick Webb within the plan, and that it will be continuing its historic role of serving the community. And, also extremely excited about the new City Springs Elementary Middle School, if you haven't figured that out already by the number of times that we, touch on that throughout the presentation. This is really looking at the way of creating the way neighborhoods are intended to be, having access and opportunities across all income levels, and designed so that, we don't have any economic ostracization. The city and the housing authority of Baltimore City are arm in arm. We cannot be successful without each other in this program, as well as we cannot be successful without all of the partners, and most importantly, the community members that have been at the table with us along the way. And, that we also can't be successful with including members of this committee as well as the city council as a whole. This is an excellent opportunity for the city. We're bringing this forward as, the first community TIF legislation of this kind. We are bringing this to you as a city agency, knowing that all of the things that we talked about, especially the pieces that Director Abrams touched upon and related to the outcomes that we're looking at for health outcomes and education outcomes and economic outcomes, will not be possible without the support of the TIF legislation and TIF financing to allow us to, take on the projects that we need to take on with this funding source and this tool in our toolbox. We thank you for your time this morning, and we will be happy to answer any questions that you have, but we do have the next portion of the presentation. We'll go back to talking a little bit more in depth as well about the TIF, and I'll pass it back on to Janet at this time.
Thank you. Next slide. I believe we have. Thank you. All right. So I will now ask Bill Wells to take over. Bill will do the introduction of take over the next part of the program. Bill Wells.
Thank you, Janet. Bill Wells with the Housing Authority. We actually have one additional portion from the City Department of Finance. And so I believe Henry Raymond's still here to discuss the budget and specific aspects of the PSO TIF.
Yep, that's correct. Can we move to the next slide? This is a depiction of the proposed development district. What you see in the light purple color is the defined geographic area for the public infrastructure improvements, just so you can visually see what the TIF is supporting in terms of the public infrastructure. Next slide. Now, this map depicts or delineates the proposed special taxing district. So as you can see, what's in the light blue color, that's actually the special taxing district for this particular TIF. Next slide. This matrix depicts the sources and uses of the TIF bond proceeds. Looking at the various columns on this matrix, we have from your left, the sources of funds and the uses of funds. Moving from left to right, you see that there are three series of bonds, series A, B, and C, which will be used to support the various phases of the construction project. If you move all the way over to the far right, to the column labeled total bond proceeds, you'll see that the total bond proceeds are $99.5 million, an additional $102,000 of interest for total sources of funds of $99.6 million. The lower part of the matrix describes the total uses of the funds. The primary use of the fund is on the first line below total use of funds, titled public improvements. And again, under the total bond proceed columns, you see that totals $76 million. The $76 million represents the cost of the public infrastructure that will be spent for this project. The remainder of the funds are the expenses to do the bond deal. Next slide. This spreadsheet shows in more detail how the $76 million will be spent. So from your left to right, we itemize the various types of costs, and then the development areas that the $76 million supports. So it includes Somerset, Perkins, Oldtown, the North Central Park that was previously discussed, South Central Park, and City Springs Schools. Now, the first subtotal for the cost, total public improvement costs, the far right-hand column is $122.7 million, offset by other sources of funding in the amount of $46.6 million to arrive at the total cost to be funded by the TIF of $76 million. Some of those other fund sources include federal funding, capital funding from the Baltimore City Public School System, and capital funding from the state of Maryland. The point of this spreadsheet, again, is to provide more detail regarding how the $76 million will be spent on the project. The majority of the costs are construction, architecture and engineering costs, and project management time. Next slide. Ms. Abrams previously discussed this map. Essentially, this is the footprint for the Choice Neighborhood Initiative and what's contained in it. Next slide. This slide depicts the temporary employment impacts. In the upper portion of the matrix, you have the direct and indirect impact from temporary jobs. and their compensation. So the temporary jobs is estimated to be 5,672 jobs with compensation of approximately $436.1 million. Also, the lower part of the matrix outlines the permanent employment impacts related to the grocery store, retail, and car barn, the hotel, and other retail offices. For the permanent jobs, it's 909 positions worth approximately $46.6 million of annual compensation. Next slide. This slide shows the annual fiscal impact and the fiscal impact over a 36-year period. So I'll begin with the annual impact. Under the projected city revenue, the real property tax increment is $7.8 million on an annual basis, less the TIF debt service of $4.9 million for net real property tax increment of $2.9 million. The developer will be paying special taxes in the amount of $50,000 a year, which raises the net property tax increment revenue to $3 million. To that $3 million, we add various types of revenue: energy tax revenue, hotel occupancy taxes, personal income taxes, recordation taxes, for a projected city tax revenue of $7.3 million on an annual basis. Next, you'll see projected city expenses. This is for general government, police, fire, sanitation, etc. Expenses of $5.1 million. So the net positive fiscal impact to the city on an annual basis is $2.1 million. Extrapolating that over a 36-year period, the net fiscal impact to the city is a positive gain of $78 million. In closing, this TIF will fund primarily the school, the parks, and the core infrastructure needed to rebuild Perkins, Somerset, and Oldtown. The entire PSO transformation area and adjacent neighborhoods will benefit from revitalized commercial corridors, redeveloped blighted properties, and the renewal of utilities and infrastructure funded by the PSO TIF. New and renovated roads, sidewalks, bike lanes, drinking water, gas, and electric sewage infrastructure, as well as fiber optic cabling, will all be funded by the TIF. As was previously mentioned before, this PSO project is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reverse decades of disinvestment and intergenerational poverty. The beneficiaries of this TIF will not only be the citizens of Baltimore as a whole, but specifically the residents who currently live in the transformation area, those who will move here to live or work, and to enjoy the amenities that are missing from this area of Baltimore. So that concludes my remarks regarding the financial aspects of the TIF.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Before Mr. Wells takes over, I just want to ask, are there any committee members that have any questions at this point? No questions from the committee. Mr. Wells, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairman Middleton. I wanted to acknowledge a few folks who have come today as part of other agencies for support. And I believe Allison Perkins Cohen, who is the Chief of Staff for Baltimore City Public Schools, is here as a presenter. And Allison, if you'd like to take a moment to make comments from the school system, that would be appreciated.
Great. Thanks, Bill, and thanks, Committee Chair Middleton, for having me and for the chance to speak about this. I really appreciate the chance to be part of this. We've been an active participant in the conversations about this for I was going to say many months, but I guess it's well over a year or two. And so I'm happy to have the opportunity to express our support for the tax increment financing plan proposed for the Perkins Somerset Oldtown project. As you know, a large portion of the TIF, about nearly 21 million, is going to be used to provide partial funding for the construction of the new City Springs Middle School building. City Springs is a highly regarded public charter school that serves as an anchor in that community. The school community there is very connected to that neighborhood and is really a major part of the fabric of that community. The families who live in that community are incredibly tied to City Springs and to the faculty and the staff there and the leadership there. And so that is a really effective school community and one of the schools we're really proud of. But the construction of a new state-of-the-art facility and a brand new building will allow them to serve their students much more effectively. The building is like many of our buildings in really poor condition, and the students there really deserve a better educational environment to learn in from the facility perspective. Like Baltimore City, City Schools recognizes the need that we also need to support this effort and have taken that seriously. So as part of this project, as I think Alice Kennedy mentioned, City Schools will be surplusing the Lombard building to the city as that site is critical to the redevelopment plan in the area. In addition, we've set aside $1.5 million from our facility improvement funds to help go towards this project. And then in addition, we've worked with the Senate President Ferguson and Delegate McIntosh, Chair of the Appropriations Committee, who then put additional funds into the Built to Learn Act, HB1. They put additional $26 million in there to help pay for the renovation of City Springs. I think it's important to point out that the Build to Learn Act also makes clear that if sufficient additional funding is not provided by the city for this project, for the City Springs project, that the funds in HB1 revert to use by city schools for our other uses in HB1, which is for our high school revitalization plan. So this TIF is really critical to leverage those resources to ensuring that the additional resources for the City Springs project are available and that the HB1 funds do not revert to other priorities. Lastly, I just want to say how grateful we are to the collaboration of HABC under Janet Abrams' leadership. Throughout this process, we have been really engaged and appreciative of the partnership. There is still things we need to work through, and in fact, this doesn't quite cover all the funds for city schools for City Springs, but we are working in partnership. I know the city's working in partnership for them to identify other resources, and we're really confident in Janet and the team's ability to do that, and really excited about this project, which will make just a tremendous difference for this community. It doesn't really make sense to revitalize a neighborhood without paying attention to the educational programming in that area, and City Springs is a great school for that community.
Thanks very much, Allison. Chairwoman Middleton, we also have Principal Rhonda Raquetta as an attendee. She's submitted a letter of support also on behalf of City Springs Elementary Middle School, which has been forwarded to the committee staff. Rhonda, Principal Raquetta, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything to the committee or had any remarks. this morning. I'm sure you're very busy.
Yeah, I would just like to make some brief remarks. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, good morning, and thank you, Chair Middleton and members of the committee. I particularly want to give greetings to our councilperson. Good morning, Councilman Stokes. I would just like to begin with sharing that I have been the principal of City Springs Elementary Middle School for the past 13 years, and I am also a 20-year resident of the neighboring community, Little Italy, so I am very familiar and connected to this community and excited about this plan. City Springs has been a pillar in this community, as Allison said. It's been for over 50 years, and having a brand new school building will put us in a position to extend our impact on the community. I have always longed for the day that our students would not have to live and attend school in a high concentration of poverty. The new City Springs will be a diverse school and a source of strength binding the new community together. The fact that the PSO transformation will deconcentrate poverty and bring mixed income housing to this area and allow our families who live here now to still live here in a new, diverse community is a reason why we strongly support this plan. The new City Springs School Building will be a focus of this new community, welcoming all who live here with the promise of a first-class education in a first-class school environment. City Springs, as Allison also said, is a conversion neighborhood charter school operated by the Baltimore Curriculum Project, and our operator provides us with high-quality professional development and allows us to be innovative, implementing proven research-based curriculum and programs. I have always felt that I could recruit any families in our zone if we had a modern, state-of-the-art school building to match the caliber of our staff and programming. During the HUD site visit, our students gave very passionate testimony. I wish I could have brought them to testify today so you could hear directly from them how much this neighborhood transformation and a new school would mean to them. But they couldn't be here today, so I am here on their behalf and on the behalf of my school community to say that for all the reasons I have mentioned and many more, including the promise that our new school will include our purple turf field, thank you, Ms. Abrams, City Springs Elementary Middle School supports the Perkins Somerset Oldtown TIF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Principal Ricketta. I appreciate it. Chairwoman Middleton, I also have on the line as an attendee user number 14, Ms. Denise Street, who is a Perkins resident. She's also the Vice President of the Perkins Tenant Council. Ms. Street personally has submitted a letter to the committee, but also the Tenant Council has submitted a letter of support for this package of legislation. I'd like to give Ms. Street an opportunity to speak if she would like to.
Yes, hello?
Yes, Ms. Street.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. My name is Denise Street. I'm a resident of Perkins Homes and on the Tenant Council. And I myself is in support of the TIF, and the residents of Perkins Homes are in support of the TIF because we really need it bad. And we would like to thank everyone that is supporting us in this TIF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Street. I also, if you could elevate user 5, I have Ernestine Chambers, who is heading up the Urban Strategies contingent at Perkins Homes. She has 2 Perkins residents with her at this time and helping them to make their voices heard as well. I think, Ernestine, you have Jeanette Lewis and Priscilla Falks with you.
Yes, ladies, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay.
Mother? Mother?
don't know what might have happened, but hello. There she is.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
mother.
Yes. I want to thank each and every one. What I heard today on the line, talking to us about the change of Perkins and things that you have set up the plan. I think it's a good idea. I've been here over 59 years, and I'm thanking and praising God for a new change because we need a new change. And I'm looking forward for the new development, the new movement that you have set aside for Perkins to move in. And I thank you so much, and God bless.
Yes, I'm Priscilla Folks. I'm Jeanette Lewis's daughter. I'm her caretaker. I grew up in Perkins as a young child and moved out, but Perkins has always been a place that you never forget. You never forget where you come from. And it's good to see that they're going to do something to bring the community, build the community up, and let those that, like myself, see how things have changed as we watch things change over through the years, how things is getting better, and it would be good for, like my mother, she just turned 86 years of age, and it would be good for her to see a change that has come and for the children to get the education that they need, to bring them in to see that education is very important. And a mind is a terrible thing to waste, and that this will bring the young people in and inspire them. I think that is a good idea. I really like this TIP program.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Middleton, on behalf of the Housing Authority, we have also submitted an agency report as requested by the committee, and I'd like to take the opportunity to officially stand behind the report and announce the Housing Authority's support for the TIF legislation. Our report should also be recorded. At this time, we have no more speakers for the agencies or presentations to make in testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Wells, and thank you, and Ms. Abrams and your team, and Ms. Kennedy for this. This has just been a very excellent presentation. I mean, you could see all the hard work that you have been putting into this project over the years. It's really like rebuilding a mini city. We're now going to move to public testimony, and we have up on the screen just a few directions in following this testimony. So the committee staff will coordinate this public testimony, so please be patient. We're going to be calling you one at a time. So when you hear two beeps, you can just say who you are. If you're going to say something at this time, you can go ahead and give your testimony. If not, just say you don't have any testimony, and we can move on to the next person. So it's important for the attendees to hear the two beeps when they're unmuted. And for the people that did not call in, use the raise hand function. And that's how we'll keep this moving. So, who we're going to start with? I gotta go under attendees. Let me see. So we're going to start with Delegate Melissa Wells.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For the record, my name is Melissa Wells. I am a resident of the 11th District, and I am here today in my capacity as Director of the Baltimore DC Building Trades Apprenticeship and Training. I recognize that I have a limited time, and so I wanted to share that the trades is comprised of 21 affiliated construction crafts and 16 jointly managed apprenticeship training centers. Our apprenticeship training centers and over 1,200 signatory contractors leverage annually over $24 million for apprenticeship and training. In my role as director, I have been for the last 5 years working to establish our apprenticeship readiness program, and we've operated several of those programs over the years. The focus has been has been on city residents, especially those who have not historically had access to apprenticeships, who may face chronic unemployment, or may be returning citizens. I wanted to lift up that a lot of the comments that were made by HABC and DHCD about the transformational potential of this project. It's not lost on me the intergenerational poverty that a lot of Baltimore City residents face, specifically in the West footprint, but across the city, and that there's been a lot of challenges when it comes to leveraging our city investments, our dollars on construction for local hire and to promote residents being able to get on that. And so I think it's important that when we're discussing the use of city and state taxpayer generated revenue, that we need to ensure that enabling legislation has clear provisions to ensure we maximize every opportunity for residents to work on the construction project and access pathways to sustainable careers and economic stability. I underscore the economic stability part, especially as we are dealing with COVID and the severe economic impact and the challenges that it's posing on our revenue, and that we will be dealing with that for the years to come. And so I think it's important that whenever we're using revenue, even before COVID, but especially because of COVID, that we do need to be very calculated and intentional in ensuring that all of the jobs created or all the jobs that will exist through those dollars, that they are being used to support residents. So specifically, what I would suggest that should be included in the legislation are conditions around hiring preferences for city residents, especially targeted preferences, and also targeted preferences or targeted numbers when it comes to apprenticeship and training. The apprenticeship is still the major on-ramp for residents. And so if we're not making those targets for apprenticeship, we're not creating that pipeline for those residents to go on and become more and more skilled and to continue to advance their career, and then opening up the door for the next person or next persons to come in into the pipeline. The other piece is that the project should definitely be prevailing wage, and that the prevailing wage is a way for us to ensure that our residents are being paid the wages that they need to be able to accommodate the basic cost of living that is required to live in Baltimore. And then also that we're really working with contractors and apprenticeship programs that provide industry certification and licensing, and that have demonstrated that they are investing in the next generation of construction workers. I have my comments. I don't know how much more time I have. This is my first time testifying via this way, but I do have a letter or my comments that I can share with the remainder, with the members of the committee. And also just want to say that I think the biggest piece that is important to say is that when it comes to establishing these standards for city residents, it has to be done in this process. It needs to be done in the enabling legislation. It has to also be enshrined in the procurement standards and contracting standards that we're asking the general contractor and the contractor and subs that they're held accountable to. It must be included in that process. And so I am available for answering questions, available to discuss with folks individually more of what we can do to make sure that this transformational project is really transformational, that we don't have our students going to a new shiny school, but still coming home to parents that are unemployed, and that our parents that are working are not still working and being underpaid. So I thank everyone for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa Wells, for your important testimony. At this point, we have one call-in, and after that first call-in, or after that call-in, any of the other attendees, if you want to testify, please use the raise hand function. So the participant that called in, we're going to give you an opportunity now. So if you want to go, if you want to testify, go ahead and recognize yourself, and you have the floor to testify at this time. Caller 16, you should be able to testify now if you so wish. So I guess caller number 16 does not want to testify. So we'll now, I don't see any more hands raised in the attendees. last chance for any of the attendees. Use your raise hand function if you would like to testify. Okay. Okay, at this point, there's no more testimony, so I just want to take like a 20-second recess, and then I'll come right back. Somebody has it open still. I can ask the committee, do they have any final questions or comments? Otherwise, he's going to miss the vote.
Madam Chair, you're not muted if you wanted to be muted.
Sorry. Okay, is there anyone on the committee that has any final questions or comments? No questions or comments. Is there a motion to move?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe if I'm not mistaken, there's a technical amendment from the Department of Law. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilman Costello, there is.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to, Hillary, can you read that amendment and which bill it applies to?
Oh, sure. Yes, this applies to City Council Bill 20-0589. And all it is an amendment on page 7 in line 2, delete the number 1 and substitute the capital letter I. And it's written out and attached to our bill report for 20-0589.
Madam Chair, would it be appropriate for me to move the Law Department's amendment on 0589 at this time?
I'd like to do that when we get to that bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So let's move on to the first two bills. Is there a motion to move bill number 20-0587, Perkins Somerset Oldtown Development District?
Reisinger moves.
Reisinger moves, and Councilman Stokes seconds.
Councilman Stokes, so move.
Thank you, Councilman Stokes. Chair Middleton, yes. Vice Chair McCray.
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Costello.
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you. This bill will be moved to second reader. Is there a motion to move bill number 20-0588, Perkins Somerset Oldtown Bond Issuance?
So move.
So moved
Second.
by Councilman Stokes and second by Councilman Costello.
Move.
Councilman Stokes, you broke up. Chair Middleton, yes. Vice Chair McCray?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Costello?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Reisinger?
Yes.
And Councilman Stokes? Having a little technical difficulty there. Councilman Stokes, can you hear me? I see you lighting up. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to move the amendment for Bill?
My answer is yes.
Oh, thank
Can
you.
you hear me?
So, yes, so we can hear you.
I said yes,
We now move to the last bill. Is there a motion to move the amendment for Bill number 200589, Perkins Somerset Oldtown, the special taxing district? There was an amendment, a correction.
So moved.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the Law Department's amendment as described by Hillary Ruley.
Thank you. Moved by Costello. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second by Stokes. Chair Middleton, yes. Vice Chair McCray?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Costello?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Reisinger?
Yes.
Yes. And Councilman Stokes?
Yes.
Thank you. Move it as amended. And now, is there a motion to move Bill number 20-0589, Perkins Somerset Oldtown Special Taxing District as amended? And that was moved.
So moved, Councilman Stokes.
Thank you. Moved by Stokes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Costello. Chair Middleton, yes. Vice Chair McCray?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Costello?
Yes.
And yes, Councilman Reisinger?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councilman Stokes?
Yes.
Thank you. These bills will be presented to the full council at the next meeting of the city council. And this meeting is adjourned. You all have a good afternoon.